real honor for me to be on this panel to moderate this discussion. And I believe that, to be honest with you, possibly the only guy who can beat us on our thinking is possibly the president of US, because by the time we decided about this whole tariff thing, he had changed the tariffs, right? So it's impossible to sort of, have any, let's say, topic which relates to the US situation and which you can hold for maybe more than one day, right? Because next day the situation changes. So I think we should avail of this opportunity while we will discuss tariffs. But I think let us avail of this opportunity to draw on the expertise of these gentlemen here. I have known them for a very, very long time. Of course, my colleague Raj here, we have worked together. Raj has the experience of working across sectors, so textiles, garments, because when we talk about tariffs, it's textile and clothing, TNC, right? So Raj brings this expertise on both the sides. Sanjay bhai here, again, we go back a long way. And I have found conversations with him extremely insightful. He always has a point of view which is very, very unique, and I really cherish that. So, and Sanjay bhai works very closely with a UK investing team in the past, so he has a lot of understanding on that bit. Nicole doesn't need any introduction. What he has done for the denim industry and all the path-breaking work that he did with the development center at Amsterdam. I've been privy to all the good work that Nicole has done in Amsterdam. I mean, that's a place worth seeing how he has used technology and how he used all the latest washing techniques to drive the power of brands like Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. So let's utilize, and including myself, let's utilize this time to ask questions, to talk to these gentlemen and draw on their expertise. As far as this whole tariff thing is concerned, and all I can say, and Nicole, pardon me for getting into Hindi for a couple of minutes. I am reminded of that WhatsApp that was moving around. कि इंडिया में सब लोग समझ रहे थे कि तारीफ हो रही है, right? And then पता चला कि नहीं, ये तो tariff है. So that was the WhatsApp, it was a very popular WhatsApp thing moving around. Tarif is like, you praise somebody in Indian language, right? तो ये है, हमने कहा कि भाई US जो है वो तारीफ कर रहा है हमारी, but पता चला कि नहीं, वो तो हमारे tariff लगा रहा था. So I think, but after that, it has been a kind of a roller coaster, going up to 140-50%, then bringing down. And I think as recent as like last night or maybe half an hour ago, it was China was at a 50%. So 20% it used to be, and then whatever was hiked up went down, which is remaining at 30%. So now China is at 50%, and India will be at 10% additional. So that is there. But the question to the panelists is that, do we really see this as a big inflection point? I mean, do we really see this as a huge change like the WTO thing in 2005? Is it that big an inflection point? Do we really see things changing from here on? So Raj, maybe we start with you. Yeah.
Yes. So see, from where I'm coming from, I see this definitely as an opportunity. But in the current scheme of things, at best, it is a tactical opportunity. Because, in the short period, we may be able to get some additional business on categories where we are strong, say T-shirts or the typical North India product or the women's wear. So there are competencies built up already. There are capacities built up already. So possibly there would be some additional business that can come in from, other economies. And okay, China has not been very strong in the women's wear sector, but T-shirts, yes. So, that can be something where in the short period, I think there will be some benefit there. But for it to be really sustainable, I think we need to up the ante in terms of the investment that we need to do, scale up the capacity that is available in this country. We've had this China plus one opportunity coming to us in the past also, but we missed the boat that time. And unless and until we really want to capitalize on this opportunity, it has to be with additional capacity. And there is a whole lot that goes into that aspect. But, perhaps I'll pass the mic on to the others for their viewpoint.
Absolutely. Sanjay bhai.
So as you just said, I mean, by the time we are discussing all this, probably this whole conversation becomes irrelevant. So I really don't know, but I can probably risk a view over here, is that And I agree with Raj, because I feel when I see and look at entrepreneurs in India, especially who are from a production perspective, I think there is a bit of reluctance to really invest a lot more to grow the business, primarily on account of the atmosphere that we are finding ourselves in, especially the compliances and the so-called ease to do business in India. And a lot of entrepreneurs actually are not wanting, or probably are happy that the second generation is not coming in the business as far as manufacturing is concerned. But my belief is that, I mean, if you can surmount that mindset and move beyond that, I think India gives a brilliant opportunity, especially from a marketing perspective, from a manufacturing perspective, because one, it solves the problem of employment, which in India is quite large, and manufacturing sector probably after agriculture would be amongst the prime sector, which gives you the potential of highest employment, and then from that perspective, it's very, very important for the government to see how they can incentivize and make it the time's worth and money's worth for people to do better and more in manufacturing. At the same time, I feel that we have always been a country who's never wanted to create IPs. And I feel I've been in this industry for 30 years and I have not found too many IPs coming from India. We are very comfortable working on somebody else's IP, to be the back office for them, to be the manufacturer, to be the job worker for them. And if that mindset still prevails, and it does prevail, I feel manufacturing and growing on manufacturing obviously is a way to go over there. While I say I mean, it'll be great that India also starts looking at creating the best brands and more IPs along the way, because our audiences, our consumers are getting so evolved, and I feel the gap between what we were and what the world is has narrowed down considerably. And so I feel our consumers are as deserving and as demanding both for us to create enough and more IPs here. But staying on the topic of tariffs and manufacturing, I think it's a great opportunity for us, but it's all in the short term. And if again Mr. Trump changes his mind and relooks at it again, so but I feel hence it's very critical that we work on the fundamentals more than this tactical opportunity for us. Though this could be probably a good initiator and catalyst for us to move fast.
So, Nicole, I will sort of, slightly rephrase the question from a brand perspective, because you have worked with brands on the product development and sourcing side for so long. These tariffs and these changes, how do they really sort of, how do they impact a brand in terms of planning their strategy? Because, how do you price a product? You're looking out in the future, you don't know what's going to happen, and you have product coming out of various parts of the world, right? For example, PVS today would be sourcing from China, from India, from there. So any other brand for that matter. So what does this do? Does this give more comfort to a brand, or is it resulting into more aggravation for a brand?
If we look at the short term, I think at this moment it's panic at all the level in all these global brands. And when I say panic, it's panicking. So when there is panic, there is no strategy. So I think in the short term, yeah, and don't forget, tariff is one of the disruptions that came in our plate recently. But before, we face COVID, we face China cotton for us was a massive disruption. So the number of disruptions we faced in the industry for 20, 25 years, the acceleration of disruptions became a kind of normal now. So brands need to integrate, in a way, resilience business model. So how you implement a resilient sourcing platform? So that's the big question. But now, as we speak now, it's panic. How we can move, how the tariff can be supported by the supply chain and not by us. So these kind of questions, unfortunately, they exist. And I'm not anymore in these big corporate brands. I think corporate brands, they were quite smart. They have this long-term sourcing strategy, big partnership with global entities with different origin countries. I think they had these capabilities or abilities to have these big partners in front of them, capable to open a different origin, in America, in Asia. So that's also the strategic thinking of these people. But now, even through, I think what Trump did, the old cards, everything is messed up. So where to go? I was in Egypt 4 or 5 weeks ago. Egypt looks like the new El Dorado for denim, because close to European consumer, European markets, America, there is special agreement. Now it's only 10%. So you can see there will be some opportunities for countries like Egypt long term. But again, I think the question for India is you should take this opportunity to reflect, as you said, what do you provide for these brands? If it's only, again, the transactional relationship you have with them, and you don't provide something else, it can be another service, can be another innovation, sustainability, etc. I think you need to lift up a little bit what you can offer to them, and probably review also, like they do with their own sourcing strategy, your customer sourcing strategy and geographically where you want to be exposed. And don't forget the local market, because I think you sat down on a huge amount of business and potential, and probably reshift or rebalance. I'm not here to give you some advices, but I think brands, they are very short term. They will go to the easiest solution when they panic, like it happens before. And what I hear, unfortunately, they come back and they ask effort from current partners to swallow a part of the tariff, but not all the tariff. So that's the kind of behavior. But I think partnership is good to be challenged in question of crisis. It's like a couple or a wedding. You need to go through some storm and you see who is your real partner. So I think this is also something to reflect for you guys.
So yeah, spot on there, Nicole. Absolutely spot on. I think the day the tariff was announced, next day I was on a call with with a brand, and simple solution that we share it 3 ways. I take 50%, balance 50% gets this shared along the supply chain, right? So absolutely right. Brands do tend to look at immediate solutions, but one is that in terms of opportunity, say for example, this whole tariff situation, changing the dynamics of the supply chain, so an opportunity. So on the other hand, also a lot of volatility, right? So on one hand, you have this opportunity, which possibly helps people look at investments, do things towards a reorganized supply chain. And on the other hand, the issue is that with so much of volatility, can you take this opportunity seriously? Would you be looking at investments? Would you be looking at shifting the supply chain? So these are two sort of yin and yang questions. So let me, I would like to take your point of view on this, the panel's point of view.
So see, if you look at India's textile and apparel exports, we've been pretty much stagnant, I would say, for the last 7-8 years at about 34-35 billion, US dollars. Now, we're not significantly growing or degrowing. In real terms, I guess we would be degrowing if you look at it. Now, 40% is apparel, the rest is textiles. So, which means that, and the other important metric here is that we are about 6 or 7% into the US as far as their apparel import is concerned, and we have a similar figure with our next largest partner being the UK, I guess. Now, considering that we are the second largest employer, in terms of after agriculture, so there is a huge population that is engaged in this business. But if you see their contribution to the economy in terms of the number of people, I think there is something significantly that is left to be desired. Now, how do you change this? Now, firstly, in my entire career, I have not seen too many significant new players come into the business from a garmenting standpoint. Textile, yes, there has been some amount of investment, but when you see the apparel space, there has been growth in the domestic brand sector, but not in the export area. So perhaps there is something that we need to be looking at. And not only that, when you look at the the domestic brand business also, most people are following what the overseas brands are doing. They are not doing their own manufacturing. They're happy outsourcing. Now, see, the West outsources because their manufacturing is expensive. We are outsourcing because we are averse to manufacturing. I mean, we are not manufacturing because we are averse to manufacturing here. Because we feel that it's easier to kind of hive off that entire manufacturing to somebody else and be concentrated on the brand building. There are very few people, and I believe that you have a factory of your own, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Okay. So something would have kind of, led you to, maybe it's the ease of doing business or like, so anyway, that's like, getting too specific. I will not delve into that area. But I think when your core expertise is manufacturing, you have a large, workforce available. I think from an export point of view, that is something that, we should leverage. Now, I believe that the government has been supportive to some extent with all these, PM Mitra parks and all these coming in, but perhaps it's too little too late right now. I think we had missed the boat once, and unless and until we kind of quickly do something, we will miss the boat yet again. So, if you, again, it starts from the ease of getting capital, because if you see the nature of this business in our country, it is more fragmented. There are less corporates who are engaged in this business. It's more on the manufacturing side. So there are more, individual entrepreneurs who are doing this. Now, they don't have the capital available to scale up easily. So one way to go about it would be, if you have more such parks, like the Mitra Park or whatever we are calling it, it creates an ecosystem where, everything is under one roof. Now, if you see, almost $5 billion worth of apparel export is just handled out of Tirupur. And it is a very fragmented, industry there, but it just creates a certain ecosystem. So, so if you're able to come together like that, then you are going to be building competencies. You're going to be becoming a destination where a foreign customer comes to you and says, okay, India is an eco space for t-shirts. I want to buy t-shirts from here. Despite whatever else, why is it that, people still find Bangladesh the first choice to buy denim? We started manufacturing denim, right? So that's some food for thought.
Agreed. Well taken. So, Sanjay bhai, to point, your insight on, let's say, Indian brands, let's say Spykar is a brand, okay? Now, a certain amount of insulation to these vagaries of international legislations, right? For example, if you have an international brand in India, let's say an H&M or a Inditex or brands like these, who are sort of importing from their distribution centers, so the product, most of the products getting imported. So that'll be sort of, impacted by such changes, whereas you have a supply chain which is a domestically grown, robust supply chain. So do you see such kind of international regulations at times working to the benefits of, brands in India, homegrown brands in India?
Again, it depends on these disruptions, how permanent nature are these, if they are of the kind that we see today happening, where all the four people on the panel and everybody out here feels that the tariffs, whether they're here to stay or not, is a question. So how can you really bank on these disruptions? So it completely depends on how, what kind of dependency you can have on such eventualities. And yes, I mean, so for example, I'll tell you the Ukraine and the Russia war. And as a brand, we all know that a lot of organizations and brands quit Russia immediately after the war started, right? And we have been kind of pushed and pressured by many departments from the government to travel to Russia and see if Spykar can open stores in Russia, because a lot of retail space is now available over there. A lot of space in departmental stores are empty. So there has been a huge clamor from Russia for brands from India to actually open shop over there. But how can you plan on something like this? Because I feel that for us to make any move, or for anybody to make any moves, it has to be part of our strategic outlook. It cannot be so tactical, it cannot be so opportunistic that we don't have an answer to a situation if tomorrow it changes back. Like tomorrow, if I go to Russia, I open stores and the embargoes are lifted on Russia and all the other brands come back. Either I have to pay the top of the dollar rental over there or they'll probably take me out. So I think these are decisions which cannot be taken on the spur of the moment, on the basis of certain things which have happened where we have no control on. And if I keep all these things in mind and then take my decision or call, it still makes sense. But it cannot be so ad hoc and it cannot be so impulsive in that sense. Just to probably take a point from I feel that in an environment like this, where you have more of manufacturers and fewer brands, we sometimes underestimate the complications and the stress which the brands also face, right? And we see everything from a point of view of the manufacturer, and I do not disagree that there are a set of issues which the manufacturers also face, and I feel that the complexities that this whole business has by itself, whether on manufacturing or whether on building brands or marketing, are unique and serious in their own rights. And so it becomes a lot more difficult for somebody to straddle both the ships, and hence it makes sense to be a master of one area and leave the other area for people who are mastering that. So that brings the expertise on both the sides on the table for business to evolve well and to function well. So we left manufacturing because we found that the growth of the brand was such that our manufacturing could not be augmented to that speed and that level. And we felt that, if we have to then decide between, do we want to stay a brand who's manufactured internally and stay small, or you partake the growth of the country and grow as much as we can and let somebody else do their job, which they are very good at, probably leave out a little money for them and share the spoils.
So, taking forward from this point, Nicholas, you have been a part of the think tanks in PVH and in your previous roles at leadership levels. You've been a part of these discussions. This whole thing that, say, for example, there was a very serious discussion where I was also involved, was about this nearshoring, right? So, a huge discussion about nearshoring in the past, that we want, for example, the US, brands in US would say, encourage the vendors, the key vendors, and I was a part of certain discussions that you set up manufacturing in Mexico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, so duty-free access to the US and things like these. Multiple such discussions, and you did mention about the new El Dorado, which is Egypt, right? So, but at the same time, then you have such changes happening. So, can you take us through the mind of of an organization? How does that really work? What are those discussions and if I can use a term in the closed doors discussion? So how does it work? How do you navigate these complexities?
I'm the spy. Oh, the discussion. Yeah, I think there is many topics from a brand perspective, very trendy. You look very good when you talk about nearshoring, AI, metaverse. I don't know. I can give you a list of diversity, whatever, inclusive. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying it's not important. But I think, in any fashion, global, corporate things, the vocabulary and the semantic they use on the slide are exactly the same. Yeah? Unfortunately. And that's the reality. So yeah, it's a trend. And to be honest, I always believe in nearshoring. Nearshoring Europe for Europe. So we have the chance, Tunisia, Morocco, Turkey, all around. There was a quite historical denim knowledge and expertise. But when margin, EBITDA, because they have to deliver. You mentioned the pressure inside the brand is enormous because you have shareholders, you're on the stock exchange, one of the big ones, you have to deliver the numbers. There is expectation every 3 months you have to show your numbers. And it's earning per share, so you have to deliver, you have no choice. So the pressure is extremely, extremely strong. So the nearshoring, for me, it's a trend. And during my time in Europe, I would say for the European collection, 99% was produced Tunisia, Egypt, Turkey. And I had a lot of pressure from the management. Nicolas, you have to go to Far East for the European collection. We need more margin. And I always hold it back. Now I can tell you the completely reverse. It's Bangladesh. It is, I'm not saying it's bad, yeah? But really FOB prices, transactional, retail price still the same, huh? Quality, etc. It becomes on the second layer, unfortunately. So I could resist a certain time, and I know also other entrepreneurs like you guys, not many, but from Vietnam, who opened an LA factory with big quantities, and with the Vietnam tariff, the guy went ballistic. I'm doing everything we asked me, all the brands, and now I've been penalized with, I think Vietnam was a crazy 70% of tariff. So the guy was livid. How you can do that to a Trump administration or even brands? Now I'm in the middle, of the mess, and there is no one commitment. Because you talk about commitment first. Where is the brand commitment? Guys, you are running, not anymore you, but the capex investment that you need and the visibility you need in the business to provide such a service and such a product is tremendous. So you need visibility and you need commitment. But you realize during this crisis, the agreement or the commitment, they can slip over very fast. For this reason, EBITDA is the key. So I think this year there will be probably some EBITDA erosion, because you cannot move this amount of quantities so fast. You need to realize also, if you're a small brand, you can be more agile, but these big guys, they cannot move like that. So there will be probably erosion, there will be some problems. But I think today they are more concerned about their sales turnover. And when the sales going down, EBITDA is strategic. They want to really to protect that. So it's going to be a huge pressure. So when there is a huge pressure, I don't think you have the best leadership. That's my point of view.
Good, very interesting. I think Nicholas has already answered the one question that I had on my schedule, which was about, do we foresee the margins of the industry getting affected in the short term because of all these changes? So, and you did mention that possibly we should see some erosion of the margins. Sandeep, how are we for time? Because we can sort of take a few questions from the audience, if that's okay. And with that, right? So is it okay? We can take a few questions from the audience, and then because Nicole is here, I had one question which I thought we'll ask Nicole, and I'm sure Sanjay as well as Raj will be able to contribute to that. So before we go to the audience, as a closure thing, this one question, Nicole, we're discussing things like tariff disrupting supply chain, right? Extending this whole thing, even a thing like ESG, right? Environment, social governance, this whole sustainability discussion that has been going on for so long, right? You know, let's say the latest narrative in the sort of so-called powers that decide everything, right, is that all this is absolutely a waste of time. They're pulling back from various, for example, America has pulled out of various organizations, support, right? So taking cue from that, a lot of large conglomerates, right? Maybe even if it's a Procter & Gamble or large banking institutions that said, okay, we want to slow down, we don't want to invest money in this whole thing about, carbon credits and things like these. So completely the whole narrative, which has been going on for so long, changes overnight because of one person's, or maybe, let's say one political party's point of view. So suddenly something which was like a whole movement goes back, I don't know how many years. So what is your view on that?
Yeah, it's another disruption from America, there was very few rules before, and now it's a global competition. So I can give you only my perspective from a EU regulation framework. I think EU still has a very ambitious sustainable framework, ESPR, etc. I think they came back. I think they had to react. So they come with this omnibus policy. So it's more. They understand probably there is also need of simplification of EU rules, because it's also extremely complex, even for us, me as a European citizen or expert, to understand what does it mean. So I think there is a good thing happening. It's about simplification about this EU sustainable framework for the textile, but I believe that they won't compromise, because I still have conversation with the Dutch government or EU people in Europe. I think they are convinced on some of the topics. So probably the scope of, I think you need to be over $1 billion turnover to open the books, and you need to be extremely careful. So I think they will target the big guys, and I think the smaller ones or the medium one will be a little bit out of the scope. So there is a postpone in terms of timing. But the consequences, if you are not opening the books, it's really, I think you can have a 4% fine on your total turnover. So the consequences exist. And I think the group, they know that. So I don't think they will be, at least in Europe, they will keep this direction, and they are motivated. And then I think it's not a fair competition, because you will have brands based in New York and California. They can do whatever they want. They can buy whatever they want. And Europe a little bit in a different way with different scope. But at the end of the day, we have to try to do the best thing. Let's lift up and not lift down the thing. It's not fair for the French brands or the European headquarters. But I think fairness with fast fashion or ultra fast fashion, now they call it, doesn't exist anyway. So I think Europe is very strong. How they can still keep a frame that will be, there is an impact, a positive impact on what everything you can do or investment you do. Because you need also visibility on that side. What does it mean for you guys as industrial guys? Where we need to invest? What is the direction? And most of the denim deal, I'm not going to talk about denim, but people are asking about, well, Nicola, what operation, where we have to focus? Is it circularity? Is it water? Is the decarbonization of the supply chain? Where we need to focus? Today, it's extremely confused. And so we need direction. We need definitely direction.
Thank you. Sanjay,
I don't have a question here for him, but I have an observation. So last year, I was invited by the United Nations to travel to Copenhagen for the fashion sustainability conference. And, all things kept aside. And we all know that landfill is one of the largest concern for all of us, and especially on the sustainability front. And fast fashion contributes one of the highest on the landfill side. This conference was sponsored by H&M, and I found it very ironical. So that's just an observation from me.
good one, says a lot for the observation. So Raj, do you see some bit of a scaling back on the ESG discussions?
To the contrary, because in our business, what we find is, because see, as you know, we are engaged mainly in leather. And leather, by the nature of the product itself, is more in the premium to the luxury space. Now, earlier, we used to see that some of these luxury brands would find themselves, insulated, or they thought that, that they were pretty much above the rest of the world in being answerable. Because, like, they said, we are design, and anything in the name of design goes. But I think they've also become increasingly conscious of this entire ESG governance. I have seen every brand tightening it, to the contrary to what you may have been experiencing. In fact, now see, there is a certain concept of vegan leather, for instance. Now, vegan leather is nothing except PU. Now, for the longest time, organizations like PETA would be bad-mouthing leather because it's on the name of cruelty and all. But the fact is, for the most part, leather nowhere is the animal slaughtered for its skin. The value of the skin itself is negligible. So it's basically a subset of the meat industry. So judging by that, you're actually bringing in circularity to the economy, because otherwise that skin would be putrefying in a landfill somewhere. And that is exactly what this vegan leather does. Because you're using harmful chemicals, the biodegradation of that product is much longer than a genuine leather. So, that is what we are seeing in our business. But then, yes, our business, although we are in the apparel space, but it's very different from the textile space. But that's where we are coming from.
Thank you. That's a good point. Very interesting point. So Sandeep, I think we can utilize this time to take questions. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for the interesting session. I have two questions, one related to the topic. That is, somebody talked about that brands are manufacturing from Bangladesh. Denims are being manufactured in Bangladesh. And after the geopolitical issue in Bangladesh, do you see that some of the manufacturing will shift to India? Can we take lead on that boat?
See, I go back to my original response on this. Tactically, you can shift a little bit, a few orders here, there. But the entire eco space that that country has created, and to Nicholas's point, so, okay, let me just answer your question another way. Bangladesh, the minimum wages or the wages are roughly about $139. They have a 10-hour shift. We are at $180 and we have an 8-hour shift. So if you extrapolate that, then we are at roughly about $23, $24 to the hour. Okay, as opposed to maybe $14. Now, if a brand is looking at driving their EBITDA, they're looking to save on duty, especially if you, even after this UK FTA, we still are disadvantaged against the EU. So why would, despite all else that happens, see, our Western neighbors also had political disturbance for the longest time. You think all these European brands are not buying there? I mean, they are buying vertically. So I think that should answer your question.
One more question. So we have people who are from the industry who have built brands. So what would your advice be to a 25-year-old boy or a girl who wants to build a global brand?
So I think there's this idiom which says, ignorance is a bliss. And sometimes I also feel very strongly that people who have a lot of experience also carries the baggage of the experience. And as much as I would have told that don't start brands, don't get into this business, it's too challenging, it's too difficult nowadays. I see that every day there is a brand who's doing well. So my belief is that this cycle will always move on, and you have to employ new ways, new thinking. Customers are changing. We have to change along with that. The new age people will have a similar mindset as what the customers have. So from that perspective, there is less effort for them. For a person like me to really rethink on what I've learned and unlearn that, and then learn all over again what the younger kids want, is an effort. But so in short, my advice is one should go at it. There is always space for more and more interesting things. And I also believe that the biggest enemy for any established brand or business is the complacency. And you need two things for any business to work. One is the offering and the other is the customer. In an established business, both of them are there, right? So I will pick up an established business because the people who are offering it have become complacent. It allows enough and more room for a newcomer to come in because the customers are already there. You just have to change the way you reach the customers, and you have a good and a potential business on hand.
Thank you so much. That answers my question.
So let me ask a very difficult question. I mean, this is a gut feel. It has to be a gut feel answer, nothing else, because even Mr. Trump does not know about this. Do you expect India to get a better deal than other manufacturing countries? I mean, just as a gut feel, there's nothing really substantial to bank upon.
So, gut feel based on all the current conversations. I mean, gut feel, where does it come from, right? So, India, the way it has engaged America, even from Trump's previous, let's say, stint, and I think India has been able to build up a very good goodwill with America, especially with this current dispensation. So possibly India should be able to wrangle a good deal here. That's my gut feeling.
Maybe everybody can.
Well, I am in agreement to that statement because, as per the latest statements by the US president, he's been able to get us to have a ceasefire on the basis of trade. So that should give you some food for thought.
But in the same way, he has pitted us in the same bracket as Pakistan. So it does not, I don't think that there is a good deal out there or it's going to be better than Pakistan. So I think it's very political, and he's playing it in that manner. He's pitting us against each other and going to extract his pound of flesh from wherever it comes.
So the potential of India, yeah, I really believe that you have your card to play. So don't listen to all this disturbance. Focus on what you have to do, because it's this only distraction. Yeah, and you should reflect even more.
Thank you.